Okay, we're going to try this again. I just experienced a fairly significant strange technology moment, which made Genesis chapter 2 completely unusable. So we're going to try it again with significantly reduced video quality and see if that makes a difference. Pardon me. And hopefully that'll be okay, because I know you're here for my marvelous insights and not to bask in the glow of my beauty. All right. So, hit that thumbs up. Throw your boy some sheep validation. And we'll dive right in to Genesis chapter 2. Exodus chapter 2. Come on, coffee. All right. Exodus chapter 2. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to wife a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived, and bare a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off, to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river. And her maidens walked along by the river's side, and when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, This is one of the Hebrews' children. Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, Shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, Go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, Take this child away, and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child, and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and said, Because I drew him out of the water. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens, and spied an Egyptian smiting an Hebrew, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way, and when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Hebrews strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, Wherefore smitest thou thy fellow? And he said, Who made thee a prince and a judge over us? Intendest thou to kill me, as thou killedst the Egyptian? And Moses feared, and said, Surely this thing is known. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh, and dwelt in the land of Midian. And he sat down by a well. Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. And they came and drew water, and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them, and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel their father, he said, How is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and drew also water enough for us, and watered the flock. And he said unto his daughters, And where is he? Why is it that ye have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses Zipporah his daughter. And she bare him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a strange land. And it came to pass in process of time, that the king of Egypt died. And the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up unto God by reason of the bondage. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God had respect unto them. And that's Genesis chapter 2. All right. When you grow up like I did, with a lot of Bible-adjacent media and entertainment, you sometimes think you know some of these stories real well, and sometimes you're correct. And sometimes you go back to these stories later and you read them, pardon me, and come to find out what you remember is Cecil B. DeMille movies and Hanna-Barbera cartoons and such. And you go into the text of this story, and you find out that we don't actually know not just much, but anything at all about Moses' young days. We go from Moses as a months-old baby in a basket to Moses as a strong young man with an overdeveloped sense of justice who's charging around Goshen, inserting himself into other people's confrontations and sometimes killing them and hiding their bodies in the sand, once that we know of. It's not made hugely clear as to whether Moses knows that he is adopted. I mean, somebody knew he was adopted, because Pharaoh's daughter came back to the house one day having gone out not pregnant and come back later that afternoon with a 3-month-old baby that doesn't bear any resemblance to her or her daddy king. But we don't know whether Moses was raised knowing of his origins, or whether he was raised looking different from everybody else in the royal court and just sometimes being looked at askance, or if he was just raised in the royal court, didn't know anything about it, about the story of his origins. Well, anyway, one day, once he's grown, he goes out, he sees an Egyptian wailing on a Hebrew, and he murders the Egyptian, buries the body in the sand, and goes back to the house. The next day, he goes out for another walk, and he sees 2 Hebrews getting into it, one of them wailing on the other. And he rolls up and says, "What's going on here?" And the guy who's doing the wailing on turns to him and says, "What are you going to do about it? You going to kill me and bury me in the sand over behind the abandoned grain storage unit like you did with that guy the other day?" Moses goes, "Bleh." And his adopted granddaddy Pharaoh hears about it at about the same time that his adopted grandson is charging around making himself judge, jury, and executioner, and worse, executioner of Egyptians. Decides he's going to kill him, but it's too late because Moses has hightailed it out of there and gone to live in the neighboring land of Midian, where he continues to exercise his overdeveloped sense of justice, and this time gets a wife out of it. So he's sitting there by the well one day, and 7 young women and a whole bunch of sheep roll up. Just as the women are getting ready to water their sheep, a whole bunch of man shepherds roll up and chase them away from the well. Moses inserts himself into this situation, waters the sheep of the lady shepherds, and goes on about his business. They go back to the house, and the story then follows the lady shepherds, and that's when we find out this happens all the time. Because Daddy Reuel, the priest of Midian, looks up, sees his daughters rolling up with the sheep all rested and watered, and says, "You're back early." And they say, "Oh, well, there's this random Egyptian sitting there by the well, and he chased the shepherds off today, so that's why we're back early." And Reuel says, and it didn't occur to any one of the 7 of y'all to invite him back to the house so that I could say, "Thank you for your help. Here's some burgers and beers as a thank you." And they say, "No, Daddy, it didn't occur to us." Just go get the nice man that helped you, bring him back to the house so Daddy can say thank you for helping out my daughter so they didn't get roughed up by the man shepherds today. They say, okay, and they do, and they bring him back, and Moses and Reuel hit it off, and hit it off so well that he moves into the house of Reuel and gets given Zipporah for a wife. I think we've already named more women in the first 2 chapters of this book of Moses than we did in the first half of the last book of Moses. We know Ziphrah and Puah, the lying midwives who saved the baby boys. We know Zipporah, Moses' wife. We don't have any idea what Moses' sister's name was, what his mama's name was, what Pharaoh's daughter's name was, nor what any of her maid servants' names were, but we've got 3. And by this point in Genesis, I think we had Eve. That was it. Cain's wife, the first other woman we know of, didn't even get a name. Didn't even get an origin story, because people still fighting about that nonsense. All right, so Moses gets hitched, gets a son, and while he's raising Gershom in the strange land of Midian, insert your Clive Barker joke here, Yahweh, remember Yahweh? Yahweh looks down and says, oh crap, they're still there. They're still in Egypt. I knew I was forgetting about something. It's a good thing Big Daddy Abraham isn't around here. I doubt that a few generations of hard work and slavery was what he had in mind. He's finally got him his multitudes of descendants as numerous as the sands of the sea, and they're slaving their butts off in Egypt, of all me-forsaken places, 8 generations later. I guess I better do something about that. I wonder what I'm going to do about that. Let me think. And what does he do about that? Well, you'll just have to come back for chapter 3 when we find out. I hope y'all are enjoying this. I myself really am. We are in Exodus now, book 2. You didn't think that was going to happen, did you? You didn't think we were going to make it this far. Truth to tell, I wasn't entirely sure we were either. All right. Well, hit the thumbs up, hit the bell, especially both of them. But these have been coming out a little on the irregular side, so make sure you hit that bell after you hit that thumbs up. Check out the rest of the playlist over here. Well, this is only the second one, so. But still, check out Genesis playlist back on the homepage if you missed anything along the way. And as we say, poke the Pope to subscribe. Y'all come back and see us. We'll see you again soon. Take care and be safe.